Hello and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, the best place to find mental health and addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
Each week, we profile a guest who shares openly about their mental health journey. They share because they understand that when people don't talk about their depression or other mental health conditions, those of us who do struggle with them can feel like we're the only ones, that there's something wrong with us and that no one understands. We understand.
I'm Terry McGuire, the creator and co-host of this podcast. You have my promise that we'll keep it real here. Depression is real, and we're not going to sugarcoat our discussions about it.
Hope is also real, and you'll get a dose of that here too. I'm Carly McCullough, a licensed social worker and educator, and Terry's daughter. We've both experienced depression and also support loved ones struggling with it. We're here to normalize talking about depression and mental health in our communities, as well as our families.
And to share real-world tested strategies that have worked for other people who have walked similar paths. Thanks for joining us. We record a couple new interviews each month and also replay some of our best ones from the archive so that newer listeners don't miss out on those.
This episode is from when Dr. Anita Sands was co-hosting.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, Anita. With the recent change in the Suicide Prevention Lifeline number in the U.S. from an 800 number to a 3-digit number, 988, the subject of suicide has been in the news a lot, as is often the case with the subject, which we are going to be talking about in this episode. There is usually the stated or implied assumption that someone thinking about suicide is suicidal, that the very thought of wanting your life or its pain to end means immediate emergency steps need to be taken to save your life. And that's not always the case.
Suicidal thoughts or ideations are actually on a scale, with one end being the thought, but with no intention of carrying out an act that would end your life, all the way to the fatal end of the spectrum, as well as a number of levels in between.
With this episode, we will link to the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, or the CSSRS, which is considered the most evidence-supported tool of its kind. It's a series of 6 questions to determine immediate risk that include: in the past month, have you wished you were dead or wished you could go to sleep and not wake up?
Have you actually had any thoughts about killing yourself?
Have you been thinking about how you might do this?
Have you had these thoughts and had some intention of acting on them?
Have you started to work out, or have you worked out the details of how to kill yourself? Do you intend to carry out this plan?
And the last question, have you done anything, started to do anything, or prepared to do anything to end your life? You can see that the questions are designed to distinguish between thoughts of ending your life and actual intentions and plans. That's what we mean by suicide thoughts being on a scale or a spectrum. The American Psychological Association and other sources note that most instances of suicidal ideation do not progress to suicide attempts. Today's guest, Wally, really wants people to understand that, because he wants to be able to start and have public online discussions about suicide without being reported or having people react in ways that worsen his mental health. Because for Wally, suicidal thoughts are a daily occurrence, and Wally's far from the only one. Here now is Wally, giving his voice to depression.
Wally is a bald-headed, bushy-bearded U.S. veteran with a traumatic life story and a huge heart.
You can't even say the S word without people freaking out. So I get the panic. I totally get it. I've learned to ask questions instead of panicking.
And Wally says that's one of the reasons that people who think about suicide often keep that fact a secret.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but suicide is a thing and things can be talked about. When we attach the stigma of shame and guilt to these words, then, we send a lot of conversations into the closet. I don't like how we force conversations into the dark because we're afraid of a word or because we've stigmatized that word. And I might feel strongly about that.
Before we shifted from the topic of suicidal thoughts in general to Wally's own, as well as other personal details of their life and mental health journey, we told Wally what we tell all our guests. The episode is yours, and the process of making it should feel more like a conversation between two people who believe in the power of shared stories than a grueling interview. Oh, also, I just want to say, which I should have said at the beginning, even those of us who talk about this stuff and ourselves regularly doesn't mean at any given moment in any given day you feel like it. So if I ask anything and you don't want to answer, just say, I don't want to answer that. And if there's anything you think is important for our listening audience to hear, and I don't prompt it, say, hey, this is important. This is your story.
We don't talk about this in open terms, It's almost not possible to say, I'm having suicide ideation and not have 3 or more people jump in trying to save you. I'm not in a position where I need to be saved. I'm in a position where I'd rather talk about anything but that because I'm managing it and I want to have a life too. So, and that's kind of where I am with it on my wall, on my feed on Twitter. It's like, come talk about it. Come talk about every part of it.
Pretty much every part of Wally's personal story involves pain. They say they regularly live at about a 7 out of 10 on the pain scale, though lately it's been closer to an 8. And it all started in childhood.
It's so hard to raise good parents. I loved them, and I can't say that I wasted that love or anything, but it's like nothing good ever came from it. Not one thing, I did grow up, and I left at 16, with broken ribs and broken jaw and a bleeding liver and parents. I'm like, parents. Wow. I don't know what else to say,
No, there's nothing else to say. Wally says as soon as they turned 18, they joined the Coast Guard, where they were well decorated and well respected.
And honestly, the Coast Guard was the best thing for me. It showed me how to do hierarchies of planning, how to plan to come back, how to plan to be safe, how to do maintenance and how to check your tools and how to be accountable and how to have integrity. And along the way, I had several people teach me some very hard lessons. I made some massive mistakes. Oh my goodness. So I learned some very hard lessons. And every time, because I would just bounce back and start performing again, I'm like, well, this is what I do, During that service, Wally fell 45 feet from a cliff, sustaining more serious and lasting injuries. Like I say, I basically broke every bone on my body from my skull to my right knee, pile drived my right wrist and forearm. I spent 2 years in the hospital. That's one of those things, it changes everything. Within a few months, it had become chronic, and I had to accept some things. And I'm pretty hard-headed, and I can't accept the unacceptable sometimes. It takes me years. Wally's hard head has also been seriously injured. So I've got three traumatic brain injuries. I've got 15 documented concussions, and I was on clonazepam, a heavy dose, for 11 years, and I had some brain shrinkage and damage. And it's just a lot to come back from. My brain doesn't always do what I think it should, what I want it to, and I can remember how I used to be, and that's a very sore subject. That's where a lot of my toxic self-talk comes from. Oh, this used to be so easy. And then I can just beat up on myself in a death spiral. It's beautiful. It's flawless. Thank God for mindfulness, but it can take a half an hour to fire up on those because those are potent. Those are true. And when the pain and those thoughts are chronic, as they are for Wally, they can understandably breed a sense of hopelessness. Yeah, the suicide word, I wake up in the morning into what I call my pain body, and I'm just completely inundated. It's like, oh, this is the rest of my life. And there it hits me right there every freaking morning. And so I have an hour that it takes me just to get my shit together in the morning after I wake up. I have a routine and a ritual, and I just mindfully dismiss everything and dream things, trauma, from childhood, all those wrong emotions that are still hanging around in your heart and your head and stuff. It's like, no, you got to go. You're not real. I tested. It's like, is this from yesterday? Did I feel this? What's this about? And so every day I'm like, this is the rest of my life. I'm like, oh, shit. Sorry.
It's okay.
But,
I'll bleep it.
I was a sailor.
So it's real that they swear like a sailor is a real thing, huh?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Wally posts about that reality, the chronic pain, not the swearing, on their Twitter feed, deliberately provoking uncomfortable conversations. Wally writes, quote, "There is a distinct difference between suicide ideation and suicide planning. I ideate nearly every day. The pain's that bad. I'm not suicidal at that point. Don't try to save me when I'm talking about ideation. Ideation is normal for me. I manage it." Close quote. Wally manages it consciously and daily. They use what they've learned works and keep trying to develop more tools.
So for the last 16 some odd years, I had this guy who was a mentor, and he taught me about tools and sent me to CBT classes. It's meant 3 times to learn CBT, 3 times to learn DBT. I'm a little slow. Mindfulness, I've been just practicing it forever. I can bring my heart rate from like 200 on a bad anxiety attack down to 60 now in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
Just with my breathing. And I have heart fluctuation problems, and I have thermoregulation problems from brain damage. And I'm literally just breathing my way through my life right now.
Wally also personalized materials they found on AA sites and made their own mental health inventory tool.
I call it a check-in and an inventory because it just sees where I am, and if I'm sticking to my goals, where my integrity is, am I backsliding in any direction? What do I like about myself? What don't I like about myself? What do I think my greatest strength is right now, and what do I think my greatest weakness is right now? And you just go through this big inventory and say, where am I right now?
You take your mental health management very seriously.
Oh my God, I'm a bit of a monster without management.
Wally is very aware that there are times their normal tools just don't do the job. Wally does not leave those times to chance. As a Coast Guard, they had people's lives in their hand. Wally's aware their own life is also there, and they keep a close eye on whether their suicidal thoughts are moving in a potentially dangerous direction. Wally's personal assessment scale has 3 levels.
First one is just flirting with the idea of ideation. It's like, I don't want to live today. You don't really go much past that, and you don't have to dismiss anything. It's just a feeling, and then you let it go. And then there's ideation for me. That's where you get the onslaught. Everything in my life is crap. There's projects I'm never going to catch up. I might as well just be dead. If I was dead, everything would be better. They would probably bring somebody in to help. Well, none of that is real. It hasn't happened yet. And honestly, from my mindful standpoint, it's like, who are you? This is not the Wookiee that I know and love. What wounded part of me just said all of that? Well, it's the part of me that's stuck looking at the future going, oh my God, this is my life, oh my God.
And if the slide continues, Wally takes life-saving action.
And I've activated it numerous times. If I'm worried, if managing my suicide ideation becomes what I call a full-time job, I activate my plan. I can manage a lot of stuff mindfully, but once you get to a certain point with that, then it's just too much.
Wally wrote a short poem about how to have conversations with someone who seems to have reached that certain point. In just 15 words, he teaches more than some of the classes and seminars on the topic. Wally writes, quote, "Unsolicited help is not help. It's an assumption, inhabiting a spot better filled with questions." Close quote. We asked Wally specifically which questions he uses and recommends.
When somebody says I'm having suicidal thoughts, I ask them what kind of suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
And I don't give them an out on that one. There's no marrying or anything. What kind of suicidal thoughts are you having? Are you? And then if they don't answer, I said, well, are you planning or are you just thinking about it? Mm-hmm. Because that decision tree is pretty easy and pretty obvious. And if they're just thinking about it, and I say, well, do you have friends in your life you can check in with you and talk to? Do you have an emergency plan? I mean, if this gets worse, do you have some way of dealing with this? And so that's the conversation I take on the ideation side.
Okay. And
if they're suicidal, then I say, do you want to get some help on this? Because there's nothing, I can't help you with this. Online, I can't do it. I'll melt down. Mm-hmm. And I say, I've got friends. I've got some friends I trust. Do you have friends you trust? Let's find somebody to help give you an ear and sort things out. And then I have to hand it off. And that's my great sorrow, but I have to, I have boundaries. I can't do this. I can't do everything.
What Wally can and does do is willingly sit with people in the often avoided dark, having hard conversations, exploring life-preserving options with strangers and friends alike, and most importantly, caring.
There are so many people who have lost somebody dear to them, family or friend, and they're out there and they're fighting the fight every day, and I respect them. I love them. I hurt for them. And they're serious about it, and they care. They truly care. And there's just no practice on how to talk about these things.
Wow, Terry, that was pretty amazing. And I have to say that I just love that Wally is trying to get us back into a state of balance about suicide prevention, because I think in trying to make sure that people take suicide seriously, we might have kind of overshot it a bit. And now people sometimes have a knee-jerk reaction to the S word.
Mm-hmm. Because of that, sometimes, probably often, people may hesitate to share that they're having suicidal thoughts because they're afraid they're going to be largely involuntarily hospitalized.
Right. I think there's a time and a place for hospitalization, but not just because somebody is having suicidal ideation. As Wally, illustrated, it's normal to have suicidal thoughts in certain situations. And, chronic emotional and chronic physical pain are certainly two of those kinds of instances. And, just having thoughts and ideation does not mean that a person is actively suicidal or needs to be immediately hospitalized or involuntarily hospitalized. So I would love for therapists and doctors and friends and loved ones to make it safer for the person to be able to share what they're thinking about. And I think then getting them access to whatever level of help that they need, whether it's, a crisis hotline 988 or speaking with a therapist or a doctor, or perhaps even, going to the emergency room or to a hospital, whatever is appropriate, then you have a person who has felt heard, understood, and hopefully sees the need for whatever level of care they might need then.
Excellent. Thank you, Anita, as always. And thank you, Wally, for just being so articulate and free with your experiences and for trying so hard to help other people.
It's just phenomenal, Terry. I'm so glad that Wally was willing to speak honestly.
We really hope that this discussion helps give some language or context to your own depression or ideas for how to support someone else in your life living with it. We invite you to check out the hundreds of episodes in our archive and to explore both the Resource Hub and treatment options on recovery.com. Depression is too dark a road to walk alone.
We'll be back next week.